and even hand the mic over to allies who are men and fathers, creating better outcome for child and maternal practices. Join Zainab Fridays 12:15 p.m. on 99.3 Nigeria Info on Maternity Line Show, an all-encompassing medium for every woman, mothers and intending mothers.
Lagos 267A. Etemi Young presents Victoria Island, Lagos. This is Maternity Line Show. I am Zainab Yakin, and of course, today we are stalling our regular programming. Here on Maternity Line, and taking another pause on our newborn and baby care series for a tribute show in honor of the late Mr. Rotimi Sankore, who passed on last Friday. That was April the 12th. Now, the news of his demise reached us during the early hours of last Friday. I think about 2 hours before I came on air, but we were awaiting the official confirmation from his family. But over the weekend, official announcements had dominated the news space, right? Now, in the last 1 week of Mr. Sankore's demise, much have been said here on our station, particularly, from the start of the week across our shows, from the morning crossfire to Sunnyside with Joy's, Hard Facts, among others. And I remember during the morning crossfire on Tuesday, I think Wednesday, yes. On Wednesday, a senior colleague who was a guest on the show, that was on Sunday, while responding to Kofi Bartels on suggestions to keep Rotimi Sankore in our memory forever, she responded, saying Rotimi was someone with so much passion, and she had a lot of great works, undoubtedly, And on Sunday, everybody has been talking about ways to immortalize great works of Mr. Sankore, the veteran journalist, the policy and development expert. And she made a suggestion that it's important to look at issues Rotimi was passionate about during his lifetime. And I said to myself, because I have been with Mr. Rotimi Sankore, I was with him for, I think, over a year, going to 2 years until the moment of COVID-19, and we had to start working from home. And after we were unable to work together with Mr. Rotimi again, because most of the times everybody was just home, especially we, the people in the background, we're home working and all. And I've been looking forward to, sadly, I was looking forward to being with Mr. Rotimi somehow in some type of way later in the future, but unfortunately death has done its part. We understand death is inevitable, and we are going to we owe that debt. Let me just put it that way. We all owe that debt to death, and one day, someday, we all are going to leave this earth. Now, Mr. Rotimi was as I said, a lot has been said about him. And I bet this conversations, it's something, the conversations about Rotimi Sankore, it's something that will keep going on and on and on, perhaps for the rest of the month. And I'm also, I know for a fact that no matter the kind of conversation the people are having online that has to do with data, policy, development, governance, they will always, one way or another, there will always be a reference to Mr. Rotimi Sankore, right? Because for a fact, he was an advocate for maternal and child health. And this is why he, even in death, he has made it to the maternity line today. Yes, Nigeria Info, once again, if you are just tuning in, this is Maternity Line, and I am Zainab Yakin. The radio dial is 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are talking Rotimi Sankore, an advocate for maternal and child health. Please keep it locked.
This is
Maternity Line.
Maternity Line.
Everyone says I'm beautiful and bold. They say I'm fashionable. And to crown it up, very confident. And my secret is...
People say I'm good looking, funny, hardworking, and to crown it up, very confident. And my secret is...
So whether in the office or at home,
in the streets or on the dance floor,
anytime, any day, I never lose my confidence. And the secret to my confidence is Wazobia perfume.
absolutely. Wazobia perfume gives the authenticity and long-lasting fragrance all day. That's my secret confidence.
Wazobia perfume is available in body spray.
Also available in supermarkets and markets near you.
You can also get it on Jumia.
Wazobia perfume, the correct scent.
It isn't just about your safety alone. The lives of other people are in your hands. So whatever you do, be irresponsible. Don't drink and drive. This is an initiative of the Safe Roads campaign, brought to you by Pernod Ricard Nigeria.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
This is
Maternity Line.
Maternity Line.
.3 Nigeria Info is the radio dial. If you're just tuning in, I am Zainab Yakin, and this is Maternity Line show. Today we are honoring. Today we are having a tribute show in honor of the late Mr. Sankore, Rotimi Sankore, who died last Friday at the age of 56. And the news of his demise has been all over the internet. And we have also, we have been dedicating this week across our shows in talking about Mr. Rotimi's great works, and in case you don't know Mr. Rotimi, the late Mr. Sankore was a journalist, a very, very veteran journalist, and he was also a former chairman, editorial board, news and current affairs, and of course the host of Public Square, a flagship program on Nigeria Info here, focusing on democracy, development, governance, and policy issues. But relevance to this show today is we are projecting his nuances, using his words, nuances, being a staunch maternal and child health advocate, and of course a very passionate feminist. I don't need to tell you that again and again. I mean, people who have been listening to our shows from the beginning of the week would testify to most of these accolades being given to Mr. Rotimi, because that was a man who actually worked. Mr. Rotimi worked, and he worked passionately, and I will also say effortlessly. Yes, Mr. Rotimi was that person. You could get into a conversation with Mr. Rotimi and you are checking your time. You keep checking the time. I'm like, hey, 2 hours. If Yvonne is listening right now, I remember the time we were co-producing the Morning Crossfire, myself, Yvonne, and Tosin Akinride. Yes, the three of us together with our bosses, Mr. Sheriff Quadri and Wemimo Adewini. After the show, Mr. Rotimi will call us and, he will tell us, you guys are doing great jobs, I must say. But you know what? You don't need to limit yourselves to this you are doing currently. There are a lot more you could do beyond this. Don't just limit yourself to one thing. So he was that person. He was that man, a very selfless person that would want to pour himself into you, right? Because he always would look out for you doing well. And in terms of statistics, if you hear me on Maternity Line reeling out statistics, I tell you, that was one thing I learned from Mr. Rotimi Sankore. One of the most treasured, let me put it that way, a thing I've ever learned from Mr. Rotimi. Mr. Rotimi was a data man. He was a statistics man. He was a figure man. Mr. Rotimi, apart from being a journalist, Mr. Rotimi was a teacher. And every conversation about him, every conversation you had with Mr. Rotimi was also talking to you about how to be a better version of yourself, right? So now imagine someone like that talking passionately about maternal and child health. I had to dig up some of his past shows, the one he did here. During the Morning Crossfire, even the one he did on our sister station in Abuja, Nigeria Info 95.1. Lagos is 99.3, also you are listening to 99.3, so don't get carried away. Yes, so Mr. Rotimi was that person that would tell you, hey Zay, hey Yvonne, these are the things you guys can do, and you get it better. Now have a listen to this.
That children eat get food from all the different food groups, fruit and vegetable, whole grain, lean meat and fish, nuts, groundnuts, cashew nuts, dairy products, milk, yogurt, cheese. Are these things affordable? Are they, present in any society, in any community? Is there electricity to store them? Are they being transported? If you go to developed countries and just walk into any average supermarket, you will see there is a reason why these things are put on display, in prominent places, at the entrances, with big posters. Here, these things are assumed to be what they call ajebota food. So you can see, by way of overview, what the significance is.
Okay, it's quite a very, very important point that you put out there. So, but what does the data tell us about the state of nutrition for health and development in Nigeria?
Oh, the data is really shocking and frightening. Because around 45% of deaths among children under 5 are linked to undernutrition, which is the worst type of malnutrition. Obesity is a type of malnutrition, but that's not what we are focusing on here. We are focusing on undernutrition, wasting, stunting, underweight, the low weight for age, and this is a really significant factor in death of under 5 children, and it is in fact also made worse by we did water. We talked about water, sanitation, and hygiene the other day as well, and where there is unclean water, it leads to high levels of diarrhea. Which also then contributes to malnutrition.
Indeed.
So the data is really quite interlocked. If you want to look at the bigger impact the data on education, intellectual ability, insecurity, and so forth, then we need to get more specific so that people can understand that the data is not just abstract. So if you look at acute malnutrition in Nigeria, children 6 months to 59 months, you will see, for instance, that it is highest in the northeast of Nigeria, followed by the northwest. And if you take into consideration all the impacts I was talking about earlier, you start to see how it manifests. In fact, the highest prevalence of what is known as global acute malnutrition, if you want to look at it at state-by-state level, is highest in Zamfara, followed by Katsina, then Jigawa and Sokoto. That starts to give you a better understanding of how it is impacting on education, cognitive and intellectual ability, insecurity. And if you look at stunting, which is an indicator of really chronic malnutrition, which leads to retardation, growth deficit, and a whole lot of problems. And it is at critical level, above 40% in Northwest and Northeast. In Northwest, it's 52.1%. In Northwest Nigeria, in Northeast, it's 44.3%. And again, if you break it down, if you start looking at it at state level, you will see again that in Katsina, it is highest at 58%, Zamfara 55.6%, followed by Jigawa, Sokoto, Kebbi, Kano, Kaduna, and so forth like that. So you can see that hunger and malnutrition both cause and are an outcome of insecurity. And if you look at other connected data, say in terms of total fertility rates, polygamy, that is total fertility being the number of children born per woman, multiplied by, say, polygamy, then you start to understand that, an average guy that doesn't think anything of having 28 or 32 children, is already walking down the road of poverty and malnutrition. Exactly. For those children. So a lot of this data is interlinked and has really serious implications, which, in fact, the National Assembly, the State Houses of Assembly, the relevant commissioners and minister, say the Federal Minister for Agriculture, the commissioners for agriculture, is food and nutrition security is at the forefront of their policy, or do they leave it for the health sector to deal with once the disaster has happened? Because if agri and food sector deals with it properly, there is less problem for health sector. But as it is in Nigeria, it is a big problem for the health sector to be able to. In fact, the health sector is trying to reverse the impact. But as you can see from the data, often that impact is irreversible, especially when the children have reached the age of 5 and this malnutrition, stunting, wasting has set in already. So that's what the data tells us. And it has long-term implications, not just for the children, but for the development of any community, state, geopolitical zone, or in fact, the country as a whole.
Indeed.
Yes, that was the voice of the late Mr. Sankore in one of the episode of Public Square Special on nutrition and maternal and child adolescent health. It was a show that he had back then in September 2021 on our sister station in Abuja, 99.3 95.1. There is a reason for saying this, because in case you're out of Lagos and you're trying to connect with Nigeria Info, you can do this right here. I mean, you can still join us here on Nigeria Info Lagos by visiting our website, which is nigeriainfo.fm. But sometimes perhaps you're struggling with data and you just have to get your radio on. This is why I kept mentioning that frequency if you are there in Abuja. But not to confuse you, because you are here in Lagos right now, we are 99.3 Nigeria Info. So that was a show he had together with a SWAT Dunea, a colleague in Nigeria Info Abuja, or Nigeria Info Abuja, and they were talking nutrition in maternal, child and adolescent health. Remember, we've had a series, or maybe a couple of or 3 times, conversations on nutrition. I even had to bring specialists, yes, dietitians, registered dietitians, and the rest of them. Now you see, that was somebody, that was a man passionate about the children, the kids themselves. And he kept saying before the age of 5. Now you see the essence of developmental stages of children. Now you see why it is very important to feed your child with the nutrients, with the needed nutrients. I think on this same show, the public square special on this particular topic, somebody called in and says there was a woman with a baby who was just barely 6 months at the time, and the baby was being fed with Gary water, Omi Gary, the way the person put it, because she did not have enough to feed the child with. The family, they had challenges they're facing. And Mr. Rotimi responds to that particular subject was epic. You could tell that this man is so passionate, or was so passionate, because now he lives in past tense, but then his work still lives in present tense. So I may need to be interchanging or using that alternatively. So Mr. Rotimi Sankore was someone who wasn't just about the work, about the job itself. Mr. Rotimi was someone who had interest in your well-being. I remember in some time ago, I think that was 2019 or 2019, late 2019, I was battling a boil, and then I had gone to, without even going to the hospital, I had gone to purchase a particular brand of ampicillin, and Mr. Rotimi goes, "Hey Zeze, this one that you are using this thing to treat this thing," or because the boil was very obvious. I think somewhere my face, it was on my face at the time. I'm sorry, was like, "No, you don't do that, because as you are using this ampicillin, this brand of ampicillin or whatever to treat antibiotics, rather, I kept saying ampicillin, this brand of antibiotics to treat your boil, you are giving another room for another boil to come out from any part of your body. So you got to stop that and go to the hospital." And there's a lot to say about Mr. Rotimi, but I know Lagos, you also have a lot to say. You have been calling in into our very show, and perhaps you might want to call in and still say one or two with regards to maternal health, maternal and child health. I still have more to play on breastfeeding and his nuances. Yes, because Mr. Rotimi will say it has to be well nuanced. You give projections. When you are discussing issues like this, it has to be well nuanced. But before I play the next one, which it was, I think it's a show we had. It was a show we had on Breastfeeding Week in 2019 on the Morning Crossfire. Let me hear from you, Lagos. Someone had sent a message earlier. Who was that person? I think what I can see here is Sam Quick, Global Logistics. It says, okay, Okpayemi. Okay, I can see it now. Okpayemi from Lekki says, "My condolences goes to the family of Mr. Sankore. Sometime last 3 weeks, I wanted to call your station about him because it's been a while. May so rest in peace." Thank you, Okpayemi from Lekki. Another one is coming from Badru. Badru is messaging from Badru, you did not include your location. So Badru goes, this is a tough one on some of us who are fans of Mr. Rotimi. And I know this is a tough one on the station as well. But we all be fine. Last. Thank you so much, Badru. Thank you. Lagos, because this is Maternity Line, I would love to hear from you. What memory do you have of Mr. Rotimi within the context of MCH? By MCH, I mean maternal and child health, and maybe public health in Nigeria as well. What are your thoughts on what he has said so far on Public Square, one of the episodes of Public Square on nutrition in maternal, child and adolescent health? While it is, let me hook you up with another one from the Morning Crossfire in 2019.
Trying to get that. It's a bit of a problem. All right, sorry about that. Really apologize for that drop call, but you can still call.
All right, I'm trying to pull this one through, but I don't know what's going on. And I see he is speaking here. There's a lot going on that show.
Tell you.
Okay.
I've heard people say this to me. Can you eat without drinking water? So how do you give a child breast milk and you don't give them water to wash it down?
They don't need the funny thing is the midwives that will tell you that, madam, your breast is not this thing. Give the children water. Do you want to starve the child? Do you want to teach the baby and all of that?
So if your mother is not lactating, she needs to give something to the baby.
But then we have to look at why is she not lactating.
It is a process. That's the thing. It's not automatic. It is a process.
It's not that the baby comes out and the milk begins to flow immediately.
No, it doesn't. No. And I think also we're doing, start breastfeeding
in a hospital.
In a hospital. Do you know all the damage you have done? And then when I then said, why are nurses and midwives doing this? I think I said it on Twitter. And everybody said, why are you trying to something the whole reputation of? And I said, no, it's what's happening. We all need to educate ourselves. Let's all go back to basics. I am still learning. And then we start from there so that we're all singing from the same book for our women, for our community.
I'm wondering what was taught in schools to these midwives and nurses and doctors if they don't really know what to do. And we look up to them to give the mother and the child maximum care.
The quality of the education is one thing. But the public policy makers are that should know, because with this kind of information, there is the demand side, there is the supply side. It's like with injections, for instance. Once everybody knows that if needles are reused, you can transmit infection. If you go to the hospital, you ask for a new syringe. So if the demand side of it is quite strong, then it also helps the supply side. The reason I started on the water aspect of it is that when new babies are given water and then the babies fall sick, the mothers then can't sleep. And if you can't sleep, I mean, it's bad enough that you have to wake at night to feed a child. If your sleep cycle is then disrupted further, it starts to affect your judgment. You start getting very irritable and anxious because the child is sick. And often diseases linked to bad water are one of the biggest killers of infants. And of course, when you lose a baby, that is massive mental trauma for women. So in terms of breastfeeding, there is a wide spectrum of advantages for it. For the mother, for the child, actually, apart from helping to fight diseases, both viral and bacterial diseases, there are also big implications for intellect, because the cognitive ability of kids is seriously impacted by breastfeeding. And a lot of people don't pay attention to this.
We'll come back to pay attention to this because this is the important point we're going
That's
to.
right.
The cognitive growth of a child.
Okay, another one. I mean, you just heard another one from the late Mr. Rotimi, and you could tell how he spoke keenly on child nutrition. Still here, but based on breastfeeding and why it's very important in cognitive functioning, in cognitive ability for the child as well. Now, Mr. Rotimi, for a fact, was an advocate for maternal and child health, apart from being a very brilliant development and a policy expert, journalist, human rights advocate. And even though a lot has been said, as I keep saying, that wouldn't complete without projecting, in his words, without nuancing the fact that Mr. Sankore himself was a staunch maternal and child health. It made nuances towards improving women's and children's health needs in Nigeria, including being a very passionate feminist. So I still have more to say, and I would love for you to call in as well. The numbers to call. I see messages. Please do well to call in as well. I see messages pouring in. Numbers to call are 0201 465 7190 and our smart studio line is 090 0700 993 993 993. Once again, 0700 993 993. I'm coming back to read some of these messages pouring in, but do well to call in as well while Kemi takes us on a new ride.
Well, speaking on supporting the child, like you were saying earlier, you're also going to need money to do that, right? So yes, and that's why I'm here in Lagos. The weekend is here and we are still giving out money on oneplay.ng here on Nigeria Info. Okay, all you have to do is visit the website, which is www.oneplay.ng. That's numeral 1 play.ng, okay, or just dial *347 *880 *3# *347 *880 *3#. I mean, it's 500 naira, so you can never tell. You might be the lucky person. One person won 50,000 naira on Money Crossfire, another person won on WhatsApp Lagos. You can be the next person. Okay, there's money to be given out on the shows every weekday. There's Money Crossfire, there's winnings on WhatsApp Lagos, Game On shows, and Football Frenzy shows every weekend. And guess what? Every Friday, which is today, there's also a jackpot. So why would you be sleeping on this, Lagos? Don't miss out on all the goodies, okay? It's just 500 naira. Remember, your chances of winning are still the same whether you play on oneplay.ng or you dial the code, okay? So please continue to play, but remember to play responsibly. You know, the more your chances, the better the chances of winning, but play responsibly, Lagos.
Play responsibly, she said. Yes, it's back to Maternity Line here on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Thank you so much, Kemi, for that one. Times are hard, and I know people are looking forward to people dashing their money.
I know,
you know,
right?
This even goes beyond urgent 2K right now.
It's more than urgent 2K or just 5K. It's more than that.
So you might want to jump on this one, and you don't want to sleep on it, right?
Yes.
So still discussing Rotimi Sankore, an advocate. Zeta actually thought Kemi still had more to say. And look at her. She's smiling. Right. So, Rotimi Sankore, an advocate for maternal and child health, a very passionate one, I must say. He lived a very impactful life. He poured into the people around him. I'm a testimony, in case you don't know, in terms of statistics reeling. When we have conversations and we keep making references to statistics, I learned that from Mr. Rotimi, and I was here on Joyce's show during the week. I think that was on Monday. Yes, I remember. I was on the show, and Yvonne and I, including Kenneth, we were able to say a lot with regards to our personal and work experiences with Mr. Rotimi. And here is another one coming from Mr. Rotimi. Please have a listen.
It has fantastic benefits for the mothers as well.
Not just for the babies.
Yes, you started talking about the kids, but for the moms that come to this sort of cosmetic conclusion that, they are breast. So first, breastfeeding helps with weight loss after pregnancy. So if you are interested in your appearance, that is the first thing that you should know. That if you don't breastfeed, you don't lose the weight as quick as people that breastfeed. Also, the contraction of the uterus, which is where a lot of women with cosmetic concerns, that contraction works faster if you are breastfeeding. There is also a lower risk of depression if you are breastfeeding, and depression is a big issue,
especially postpartum depression.
for new mothers. There is a lower risk of ovarian and breast cancer if you are breastfeeding. It also helps with spacing children because it interrupts your menstruation and ovulation, and so there are fantastic benefits. And until ministries of health globally put out this information as a matter of public information, as a matter of public interest. These posters, if you go to more developed countries, there are these big posters where women go for antenatal, in public places, in transport. In fact, many workplaces volunteer to put up those posters as well, and even make available facilities for breastfeeding, so that if you have new mothers that have returned to work and they need to, that those facilities are there. And most importantly, for rural women, what we found at the PMNCH, that's the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, is that for rural or uneducated women, there is the very, very, very wrong perception that new babies can drink water. Babies don't need to drink water.
Well, we're coming to that, and it's not just in the rural areas. Right here in Lagos,
I'm just saying that especially.
And the reason is parents will tell you. I've heard people say this to me. Can you eat without?
So that was a show from 2019 when the Morning Crossfire host, Sheriff Quadri and Awemimo Adewini, were discussing World Breastfeeding Awareness Week 2019. And let me tell you something. On that show, there was a guest too, apart from Mr. Rotimi. And one thing about Mr. Rotimi was that if Mr. Rotimi, of course, Mr. Rotimi he was so knowledgeable in every facet of life. So now there was a guest on that show that morning, a pediatrician, a specialist. But because Mr. Rotimi was also live on that show as our in-house expert, so he just took over the show and he was educating our listeners at the time. Now just imagine Nigeria at this time, when we still have a lot to deal with. Imagine the country losing such a veteran. Imagine, this is not to say we could not have or we would not have another Rotimi again, but the question is, where are these other Rotimis? Where are these other Sankores? When are they going to come out more to take over the baton and keep this conversation that comes with a lot of data and statistics backed up. Have conversations of impact, conversations that would shift the attention of government across all levels, from the local government level to the state level and to the national level. Remember, Mr. Rotimi, during that conversation, was making a reference to MCH. And now, let me tell you a bit. Mr. Rotimi's work was both global and local, working with international development partners, including UNFPA, UNAIDS, WHO, also Geneva-based global partnership for maternal child health, and Africa Development Bank and African Union Commission. He was a secretary of the Africa Health, Human Social Development Parliamentary Network, among others. He was a part of he was the regional bodies of Economic Community of West African States. He worked with UN agencies like ECOWAS, like East Africa Community, like UNECA and the African Union Commission. He also coordinated the Africa 15% Plus campaign on development health financing, apart from chairing by South African Democracy Rights Advocate. So Mr. Rotimi's curriculum vitae is huge, and you could always go online to read more about Rotimi, especially within the context of maternal and child health. It's time for the 1 o'clock news, and Yvonne Haivo is live here in the studio. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I could not take some other messages that just poured in. Keep it locked as Danford Conversation kicks off in the next few minutes. Thank you.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.